Are you feeling overlooked or disrespected by your children? Have you ever wondered why, after all the sacrifices you've made over the years, your efforts seem to go unnoticed or unappreciated? You're not alone. Many parents, particularly as they age, find themselves experiencing the heartache of feeling disconnected from their children. It's not just a fleeting feeling. It can be incredibly painful and deeply emotional. You've given so much of yourself to your children over the years, yet as they grow older, that bond sometimes weakens, leaving you feeling unimportant or left behind. But here's the good news. There are powerful steps you can take to reclaim respect, rebuild your relationship with your children, and find a sense of peace, no matter what's happening in your family dynamics. It's not about changing others. It's about taking control of your emotional health and taking proactive steps toward healing and growth. In today's video, we'll explore 8 proven strategies that will help you improve your emotional well-being and repair the bond with your children, even when things feel strained or distant. From learning how to take a deep breath before reacting in anger to establishing healthy, necessary boundaries, these practical steps will guide you through the emotional challenges of aging, family dynamics, and personal growth. Why should you watch this video until the end? Because this isn't just about regaining respect. It's about discovering how you can rebuild your life with a sense of purpose, pursue new passions, and become a beacon of strength and confidence for your loved ones. Imagine what it would feel like to be the person everyone is drawn to, not because they have to, but because they truly admire and love you for who you are. You'll discover how to express your feelings without blame, how to set clear boundaries without guilt, and how to transform your relationship with your children into one based on mutual respect and understanding. So, stay with us as we walk you through each step. By the time this video is over, not only will you have a deeper understanding of how to improve your relationship with your children, but you'll also learn how to rediscover your happiness, purpose, and inner strength. This journey isn't just about repairing a relationship. It's about finding your emotional resilience and living a more empowered, fulfilling life. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support truly means the world to me. And if you found this video valuable, feel free to like and share it to help me continue spreading these important lessons. Let me know what you think. If you're enjoying the topic of this video, leave a comment with 1. If not, please leave a 0, and share your thoughts on how I can improve my content to better meet your needs. Now, let's dive into the steps. Step 1. Create a new circle of friends. Loneliness is perhaps the most painful side effect of feeling abandoned by your children. When you've spent years pouring your love and energy into your family, and the only people you rely on for emotional support are your children, it can feel especially heart-wrenching when they become distant. This can create a cycle of resentment and frustration, not just for you, but for your children as well. The truth is, no one should be responsible for your happiness and well-being except for yourself. That's why creating a wider social circle, friends, neighbors, community groups, can fill the void that loneliness often brings and renew your sense of belonging. Whether it's joining a local group or simply making an effort to reconnect with people you've lost touch with over the years, it's important to remember that meaningful connections can be found outside of your immediate family. Take, for example, Frank Mitchell, an 80-year-old widower who had spent years waiting by the phone for calls from his 2 adult children. These calls, once frequent, grew increasingly rare, leaving him isolated and deeply sad. Frank, who had always been there for his children, found himself yearning for a conversation or even just a brief check-in. His days felt long, and the silence became more unbearable as time went on. Determined to change his situation, Frank decided to take action. He joined a local senior club that held weekly coffee meetings, book clubs, and park walks. At first, he didn't know anyone, but he was welcomed with open arms. Within just a few weeks, Frank made new friends, people with whom he could laugh, share stories, and support each other. His new friends understood his experiences and offered him the companionship he so desperately needed. As Frank's social life blossomed, something remarkable happened. He no longer felt so overwhelmed by his children's busy lives and schedules. He still loved them deeply, but he no longer lived in anticipation of their occasional calls or visits. Frank had found his joy and sense of fulfillment through new connections. He was no longer putting his emotional well-being on hold for the hope of a phone call. Surprisingly, once Frank stopped waiting by the phone, his children began to notice a shift in him. They became more curious about what he was doing with his time. The emotional distance between them felt less tense, and their visits became warmer and more sincere. It was as if Frank had rediscovered his sense of self-worth and happiness, which in turn made their relationship stronger. This step emphasizes a key point. No matter how strong or strained your family bonds are, you deserve a community of people who care for you. Seeking companionship outside of your immediate family is not a betrayal. It's an affirmation of your need for emotional fulfillment and a life of your own. It's about investing in your happiness. When your social life doesn't depend entirely on your children, you're less likely to feel hopeless or resentful. This shift in focus can help you build healthier, more balanced relationships with everyone, including your children. In the end, you'll find that the love and support you give yourself will radiate outward, strengthening all of your connections. Step 2. Forgive without losing your sense of self-worth. Forgiveness can be one of the most challenging steps to take, especially when you feel that your children have disrespected or neglected you. The anger and resentment can build up over time, particularly when you've sacrificed so much for them, only to feel ignored or unappreciated as they grow older. That hurt can feel unbearable, especially when it feels like you've given everything and received little in return. However, holding on to that pain often weighs more on you than it does on them. The emotional burden of bitterness and anger can take a significant toll on your health and happiness. But it's important to remember that forgiving doesn't mean sacrificing your dignity or allowing yourself to be trampled on. Forgiveness is about releasing the poison of bitterness and choosing peace, while still holding on to your self-worth. It's about letting go of the past so that you can move forward with a clear heart, knowing that you have intrinsic value, regardless of how others may treat you. Take the story of Helen Montgomery, a retired artist in her late 70s, who spent countless sleepless nights yearning for her daughter, Emily, who had distanced herself over the years. Helen couldn't understand why her daughter had pulled away, and she often wondered, "What did I do wrong? Why did Emily reject me?" For months, Helen allowed that pain to affect her sense of self, making her feel inadequate and unworthy of love. The resentment built up inside her, clouding her view of herself and the world around her. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Eventually, Helen realized that holding on to this pain wasn't serving her. It was only preventing her from living fully. She made a conscious decision to let go of the resentment. Instead of letting it consume her, she decided to reach out. She wrote a brief, heartfelt note to Emily. "No matter what happens, I will always love you. I forgive any harm, whether intentional or not. My door is always open." That simple act of forgiveness didn't erase the years of hurt, but it freed Helen from the weight of bitterness. At the same time, Helen reconnected with herself. She remembered her passion for painting, something she had abandoned years ago. She dusted off her old brushes and set up her art studio once more. As she poured her emotions onto the canvas, she rediscovered the joy of creativity. The act of reconnecting with her art wasn't just a return to her hobby, it was a return to herself, her strength, and her purpose. Months later, Emily showed up unexpectedly at Helen's door. She was taken aback by how vibrant and happy her mother looked. Helen wasn't sitting by the window, waiting for a call, drowning in her sorrow. Instead, she was a dynamic, confident woman, living her life on her terms. This reunion turned out to be a turning point in their relationship. Emily saw her mother in a new light, realizing that Helen's happiness and well-being didn't depend on her, but on her self-love and self-worth. This is the power of forgiveness combined with self-worth. Forgiveness doesn't mean you let go of your boundaries or your right to be respected. It means you stop letting resentment define your life. It creates space for new, positive memories to form. Even if your children never fully reciprocate, you've freed yourself from bitterness. And if they begin to change their perspective, they will find someone who hasn't let resentment overshadow the love they've always had for them. Someone who is still proud of who they are. By forgiving, you're not letting go of your dignity. Instead, you're reclaiming your emotional strength, demonstrating to yourself and your children that you are worthy of respect, love, and peace, whether or not they can offer it in return. Step 3. Maintain financial independence. As you age, maintaining financial independence doesn't mean that you will never accept help from your children if you truly need it. However, there's something deeply empowering and respectful about showing your children that you can manage on your own. The ability to make your own decisions and handle your financial matters is not only a matter of pride, but it also demonstrates to your children that you are capable and self-sufficient, no matter your age. Studies on family economics suggest that adult children tend to respect their parents more when their parents demonstrate personal initiative, even if their means are limited. It's not about being rich or accumulating wealth. It's about being resourceful and responsible with what you have. When you show that you can make smart choices and take care of your finances, you set an example that can resonate deeply with your children, especially as they start to plan their futures. Take Tom and Susan Harris, both in their early 70s. After retiring, they made a proactive decision to downsize their home. They sold their large family house and moved into a smaller, more manageable place. They didn't do this out of financial desperation. They did it out of a desire to remain independent and avoid unnecessary financial burdens. Tom and Susan stuck to a strict budget, avoided accumulating more debt, and chose to live simply but comfortably. At first, their decision seemed like a sacrifice. They didn't go on extravagant vacations or buy new cars like some of their peers. But Tom and Susan knew that living within their means was the best way to maintain their independence in the long term. They never demanded, nor even hinted, that their children owed them financial support. They were determined to make it on their own. Over time, their children began to notice something remarkable. Mom and Dad never complained about money, and they never asked for help. Tom and Susan had their retirement under control. The couple didn't just talk about financial responsibility, they lived it. Then, when the Harris children started thinking about their futures and retirement, who did they turn to for advice? Mom and Dad. Because Tom and Susan had demonstrated how to make prudent decisions and live within their means, they earned their children's admiration and respect. Their children were impressed by their parents' ability to handle financial matters with such wisdom and grace. In return, their children were more than happy to offer support if something urgent came up, whether it was helping with a home repair or providing assistance during a brief health issue. By staying as independent as possible, Tom and Susan boosted their dignity and self-esteem. They had quietly set a powerful example for their children, showing them that their life wasn't a crisis waiting to happen. It was a well-planned, fulfilling life that they had designed and managed themselves. This approach not only helped Tom and Susan maintain their pride, but it also led to a shift in how their children viewed them. Their children no longer felt overwhelmed by their parents' needs. Instead, they saw their parents as strong, self-sufficient individuals who were in control of their destiny. Financial independence, especially as you grow older, sends a clear message to your children. You are capable, and you are not waiting around for them to save you. This can give them the space to focus on their own lives without feeling responsible for yours. And when you do need support, your children are more likely to offer help willingly, because they see you as someone who has always worked hard to maintain your independence. In the end, by demonstrating financial responsibility, you not only enhance your self-respect but also build a relationship with your children based on mutual admiration. You give them the confidence to rely on their abilities and the understanding that independence is a value that transcends age. Step 4. Lead by example. It's easy to demand respect from others, but have you ever considered showing it first? Children of all ages learn a great deal from observing how their parents treat others. If you consistently demonstrate patience, kindness, and genuine warmth, especially when your children are distant or distracted, you set a powerful standard. These small actions can gently nudge them toward respectful behavior, even when it seems like they're not paying attention. Take, for instance, David Thompson, a loving grandfather of 5, who truly mastered this concept. His adult children had busy lives and visited him only sporadically. When they did visit, it seemed like their phones were their primary focus, more interested in texting or scrolling than spending quality time with their father. At first, David felt hurt and frustrated. He longed for their attention, and on more than one occasion, he thought about saying, "Why can't you put your phones down and talk to me?" It was painful to feel like they didn't value the time they spent together. But instead of reacting with frustration, David chose a different approach. Every time his children came to visit, David greeted them with genuine enthusiasm, saying, "I'm so glad you're here." He made an effort to engage them in conversation, asking about their lives, their work, and their experiences. Even when they forgot his birthday or were absent for months at a time, he didn't let resentment creep in. Instead, David sent occasional notes, saying, "I hope everything is going well. I miss you." His messages were simple, but they were always filled with warmth and love. At first, David didn't see much change. It seemed like his children barely acknowledged his efforts. But over time, something shifted. David's consistent warmth, absence of guilt-tripping, and lack of nagging made a lasting impression on his children. Gradually, they began to spend more time with him. They saw him as a safe, positive presence in their lives, a father who treated them with kindness and respect, no matter how busy or distracted they were. And as they spent more time with him, they started to return that respect. When you lead by example, you encourage others to follow suit. The truth is, respect is often a reciprocal process. It may not happen overnight, but by showing respect, patience, and warmth consistently, you create an atmosphere that encourages those around you to do the same. It's easy to become disheartened when your efforts don't seem to make an immediate impact, but don't be discouraged. Small gestures of respect, whether toward your children, neighbors, friends, or even strangers, will gradually create a ripple effect. When you consistently show kindness, it becomes harder for people to justify their harshness or neglect. Your example can inspire others to treat you, and each other, with the same level of respect and dignity. By leading with kindness, you not only transform your relationships but also set the tone for those around you, making it easier to build lasting and meaningful connections. Over time, you will find that the respect you give is often the respect you receive. Step 5. Set healthy boundaries. Respect is a two-way street. While it's natural to want your children to treat you well, it all begins with respecting yourself enough to set clear boundaries. When you continually tolerate disrespect, you're unintentionally sending the message that you're willing to accept hurtful treatment. Over time, this can damage not only your self-esteem but also the relationship itself. Boundaries are a crucial part of maintaining your sense of dignity and well-being. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being harsh or punitive. It's not about shutting people out, it's about teaching others, including your children, how you expect to be treated. By doing so, you create an environment where your needs and feelings are valued just as much as anyone else's. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Take the story of Margaret Lewis, a retired nurse, who learned the importance of setting boundaries the hard way. Margaret's adult son, Jake, tended to only visit her when he needed something, whether it was money, help with childcare, or emotional support during tough times. Despite this, Margaret would drop everything to do him a favor, hoping that, one day, he would appreciate all her sacrifices. But over time, Jake's demands grew. He started expecting her to watch his children for free at all hours, without so much as a thank you. When she couldn't meet his demands, he would get angry and frustrated. Margaret felt worn out and unappreciated. But after another one of Jake's requests for help, this time when she already had plans, she made a decision. She said, "Jake, I love you, but I have my plans today, and I can't help you this time." Jake was taken aback. He was surprised, even offended, that his mother would say no. But Margaret stood firm. She explained calmly that her time and energy were limited, and she needed to prioritize her well-being. Margaret began to take better care of herself. She started practicing yoga, which helped her reduce stress, and she reconnected with old friends. As her social life and self-care improved, Margaret felt more balanced and emotionally resilient. She didn't feel angry or distant. She simply stopped sacrificing her well-being to meet every one of Jake's needs. Over time, Jake noticed the shift. He saw that his mother was no longer the person who would drop everything for him. Instead, she had become someone who valued herself and her time. Little by little, Jake began to show more consideration and respect. He realized that his mother's needs were just as important as his own, and he started treating her with the same level of thoughtfulness she had always shown him. This is the fundamental principle of setting healthy boundaries. Teach others to value you by valuing yourself. Standing up for yourself doesn't push your children away. It teaches them that your needs matter. Setting boundaries helps you maintain a sense of independence and dignity, while also nurturing a relationship built on respect. Often, when you begin to set boundaries, it serves as a wake-up call for your children. It helps them understand that respect isn't something that can be taken for granted. It's essential. And in the end, by valuing yourself, you create stronger, more balanced relationships that are built on mutual respect, not obligation. Step 6. Communicate your feelings wisely. When your children seem to ignore you or treat you harshly, it's only natural to want to confront them directly and ask, "Why don't you ever call? You don't care about me anymore." It's tempting to voice your hurt and frustration, especially when it feels like you've been giving so much and receiving so little in return. However, using harsh words or accusations can often create defensive walls that make it harder to communicate and rebuild the relationship. Instead, true communication comes when you express your feelings without placing blame. Kind honesty, even when you're hurt, can be surprisingly effective. It allows you to open up without creating conflict, offering a path for emotional connection rather than alienation. Take the example of George Simmons, a retired carpenter who found himself feeling deeply hurt because his adult son, Matthew, never called. Every evening, George would sit at his kitchen table, gazing out the window, waiting for Matthew to stop by. Over time, George's frustration grew. He even thought about calling Matthew himself and asking, "Why are you ignoring me? What did I do wrong?" But something told him that confronting his son in that way wouldn't help. Instead of approaching his son with anger, George chose a more thoughtful path. One evening, sitting at his kitchen table, George decided to write a heartfelt letter to Matthew. "Matthew, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I miss our conversations and hearing about what's going on in your life. I just want you to know that I'm always here for you, and I'm so proud of the man you've become." Rather than blaming or accusing, George simply expressed his feelings with love and without expectation. He shared his vulnerability, but also reassured his son that he was proud of him, regardless of the distance between them. A few days later, Matthew called his father. He apologized for not staying in touch and admitted that he had been consumed by his own busy life. Matthew never realized how much his father missed him until he read that simple, sweet letter. It was a wake-up call that brought them closer together. The relationship started to improve almost immediately, and soon they were having regular phone calls and visiting each other on weekends. The distance that had once felt so painful was beginning to dissolve, and the bond between them grew stronger. The lesson here is that thoughtful, respectful communication fosters connection, even in difficult times. People can't read our minds, and if we don't express how we feel in a calm, kind manner, they may never understand the depth of our emotions. By letting someone know you appreciate them and care for them, without sounding accusatory or resentful, you create a safe space for them to come back to. It opens the door for healing and reconciliation, rather than driving them further away. When you communicate with honesty and kindness, you create an environment where both you and your children can express themselves openly, which can lead to more positive, meaningful interactions. It's about building a foundation of trust, where both sides feel heard, respected, and valued. Step 7. Rebuild your life and find new purpose. Sometimes, when our children move away or become absorbed in their own busy lives, we find ourselves waiting for that phone call or visit that never seems to come. We might end up putting our entire sense of worth into whether our children pay attention to us. It's easy to feel forgotten or unimportant when the calls grow less frequent, and the visits stop altogether. However, the key to finding peace and fulfillment isn't tied to waiting for others to fill that emotional void. It's about focusing on your growth and development. When you focus on pursuing something that excites you, when you embrace a new purpose, your energy shifts in profound ways. And when you change your energy, especially as a parent, it becomes impossible for your children, or anyone for that matter, to ignore. It not only enhances your own life, but can even strengthen your relationships. Take the example of Joan Miller, a widow in her early 60s, who found herself struggling after the loss of her husband. For months, Joan felt a deep sense of loneliness, especially as her children, now grown with families and careers of their own, began to visit less frequently. The phone that used to ring with regularity fell silent. Joan felt as if she had been forgotten, left alone to navigate her grief. But instead of sinking deeper into loneliness, she decided to take a small step toward something new. One morning, after feeling particularly down, Joan grabbed a packet of flower seeds from her cupboard. She stepped outside and began planting them in her backyard. What started as a small, almost desperate attempt to occupy her mind turned into something far greater, a true passion for gardening. As the weeks passed, Joan nurtured her plants and cultivated a small vegetable garden. She started sharing her harvest with her neighbors and even joined a local community gardening club, where she met new people who appreciated her enthusiasm and kindness. Joan's emotional transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She felt lighter, more engaged, and more confident in herself. Her days were no longer defined by waiting for phone calls that never came. She was busy with a newfound purpose, and this positive energy began to radiate from her. Eventually, her daughter called her one afternoon, sounding curious. "Mom, you seem so happy lately. What did you do?" Joan's transformation was so noticeable that her daughter wanted to know the secret. That one phone call led to more regular conversations, and slowly, it brought the family closer together. Joan's children began to see her in a new light, as a happy, active woman who had embraced life rather than waiting for it to happen. The lesson here is clear. When you focus on your growth, you create something extraordinary. People, including your children, are naturally drawn to those who radiate happiness and self-confidence. When you embrace a new purpose, whether through hobbies, volunteering, or joining a community group, your emotional resilience improves. It becomes easier for others to be around you, and they begin to see you as someone full of life, not someone who is simply waiting for others to make you feel valued. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. By investing in yourself, you don't just improve your own life. You also set the stage for deeper, more meaningful connections. That healthy, determined energy you radiate has the potential to reignite the bond with your children. Your new sense of purpose and confidence might just be the spark they need to reconnect with you, and to see you not as someone in need of their attention, but as someone who has a full, rich life of her own. Step 8. Take a moment to think before reacting in anger. When you feel like your children are ignoring you or speaking to you in a derogatory manner, it's natural to feel hurt, betrayed, or frustrated. After everything you've done for them, it can be difficult to understand why they seem so distant or cold. In these moments, it's easy to think, after everything I've sacrificed, how could they treat me like this? But before you react in anger, it's important to take a step back and think. Here's a true story. John Roberts, a retired teacher in his early 70s, rarely saw his children, and when they did visit or call, their interactions felt distant and impatient. John often felt invisible and unappreciated. One day, after yet another ignored phone call, he felt a surge of anger build inside him. He wanted to shout, "You don't care about me at all." His frustration was overwhelming, but instead of reacting immediately, John made a conscious decision to pause. He took a quiet walk through his local park to clear his mind. As he walked through the peaceful surroundings, the fresh air and the beauty of nature calmed his racing thoughts. In that moment of stillness, John reflected on his life. He thought about the many years he had spent as a teacher, pouring his heart into his students, and the sacrifices he made for his family. He remembered the joy he felt when his children were small, and how proud he was of them. That walk gave John the clarity he needed. He realized that his worth wasn't dependent on whether or not his children called him. His dignity was rooted in a life of kindness, generosity, and decency, values he had cultivated over the years. No amount of neglect or disrespect could take away the integrity he had built. Instead of letting his anger dictate his response, John took a moment to reflect. By pausing, he allowed himself to gain perspective. He chose a calmer, more thoughtful approach when he next spoke to his children. Anger often eclipses our best qualities, clouding our judgment and preventing us from responding in a way that fosters understanding and healing. When you pause and give yourself the gift of reflection, you create the space for self-awareness. This allows you to respond in a way that opens the door to healing, rather than escalating the conflict. Taking that moment to reflect before reacting isn't just about calming down. It's about remembering your worth and responding with a sense of dignity and clarity. In the end, when you approach your children with more patience and thoughtfulness, you create a healthier environment for communication and growth. We've covered some powerful steps today that can help you rebuild stronger, more fulfilling relationships with your children, and, more importantly, with yourself. From setting boundaries to communicating with kindness, each of these steps offers a new way of thinking and acting that can transform your emotional well-being and family dynamics. So, what have you learned so far? Take a moment to reflect. What is one thing from today's video that resonated with you? What's something you'll bring into your own life and start practicing? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below sharing the one thing you're going to start practicing in your life, and how it's going to help you move forward with more peace and confidence. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more valuable insights like this. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue sharing lessons that can make a real difference in your life. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, take care of yourself and your relationships.